Good morning, boys and girls. It's your boy, Mr. B in the house. Welcome to the Floyd Middle Magnet School Digital Campus. This is Mr. Brown, and as you saw from the title card, today we're going to be talking about solving multi-step equations. More than 2 steps. That's right. So, to start off today, I'm going to give you 4 review questions for solving 2-step equations. I'm going to put the problems up on the screen. I want you to pause the video, work them out yourself, and then unpause, and you can see where I talk you through them, check your answers. If you are struggling with the 4 review questions, you need to go back to Monday's video where we walked step by step through solving 1 and 2-step equations, because those skills are crucial for continuing on to multi-step equations. All right? Try these 4 review questions out. Here are the answers to those 4 review questions. For the first one, we have 24 plus h divided by 4 equals 10. So you always start by undoing the constant first. That's this positive 24. So we subtract 24 from both sides. 24 minus 24, those cancel out. You bring down the positive h divided by 4, and 10 minus 24 is negative 14. Then we need to undo the coefficient. That's either multiplication or division. Since h was being divided by 4, we're going to multiply both sides by 4. 4 divided by 4 is 1, which leaves the h by itself, and negative 14 times 4 is negative 56. Number 2, 41 equals 5x plus 6. We're going to start with that constant. We're going to subtract 6 from both sides. Those cancel out. Pew, pew. Which leaves 35 equals 5x. 41 minus 6 is 35. Then we undo the coefficient. We divide both sides by 5. 5's cancel out. Pew, pew. 35 divided by 5 is 7. So we get 7 equals x. All right? And then starting with number 3, k divided by 5 minus 13 equals 14. We're going to add 13 to both sides, which leaves k divided by 5 equals 17. Multiply both sides by 5. 5's cancel out, which leaves k equals 17 times 5 is 85. Last one, m minus 3 divided by 4 equals 16. Since there's something to do on top of this fraction, there are understood parentheses around this. And again, we're working our PEMDAS backwards, so we're going to handle those parentheses last. So in this one, the first thing you do is undo the division. So since this quantity up here is being divided by 4, we multiply both sides by 4. The 4's cancel out. You bring down the m minus 3. 16 times 4 is 64. Now the only thing left is this constant. So we're going to get rid of a negative 3 by adding 3 to both sides. Those cancel out, pew, pew, which leaves the m equals 67. All right, how'd you do? Hopefully you got all 4 correct. If you didn't and you don't know why, please, please, please go back to Monday's video and rewatch it, because if you can't solve 1 and 2-step equations, you're going to really, really struggle today. All right, so what is a multi-step equation? A multi-step equation is an equation with more than 2 steps. You're going to have a lot of stuff thrown at you, and it's your job, it's your task to look at the problem and decipher what you need to do to get that variable by itself. All right, so there are 3 key things that we're looking for. This is the order in which you need to work these problems. Number 1. If there are parentheses in your problem, you might need to use what is called the distributive property. We talked about this when we were combining like terms. All right? So if you got parentheses, the first thing you want to do in your problem is use the distributive property. For example, if you've got this is how the distributive property works. If you've got 8 times the quantity 2x plus 4, right? What you're going to do is you're going to take that 8 and you're going to distribute it. You're going to multiply everything inside the parentheses by that 8. So you would take the 8 and you'd multiply by 2x. 8 times 2x is 16x. Then you're going to take that 8 and you're going to multiply it by your positive 4. 8 times 4 is 32. That'd be a positive 32. So what you've got there is 16x plus 32. All right, that's the same thing as 8 times 2x plus 4. Okay? The second thing you're going to look for is you need to look on both sides of your equal sign and see if you can combine any like terms. All right? This may be on the side of the equal sign with the variable. It may be on the other side of the equal sign. All right? But if there are any like terms that you can combine, you need to go ahead and combine those in your second step. All right. Now, you don't combine things from two different sides of the equal sign. All right. They have to be on the same side of the equal sign. All right. Once you've done the distributive property, once you've combined any like terms, you should be at a two-step equation. All right. And this is what we learned about Monday. You're going to work your order of operations backwards to find your answer. Sad meep. All right. So you're going to start by getting rid of the constant. Then you're going to get rid of the coefficient. The constant always comes first, then the coefficient, unless there are some parentheses, and we talked about that on Monday too. So let's try our hand at some multi-step equations. Equations, here's what we do, and here's the order in which we do it. So the first thing you look for is the distributive property. Okay, the distributive property normally comes, well, it always comes, property, with parentheses. So we're looking for parentheses, and we're going to handle those first. The second thing we're going to look to see is, on one side of the wall or the other, can we combine any like terms? If there are like terms on one side or the other, we're going to go ahead and put those together. Now, if you need to go back and re-watch the combining like terms video from last week, please do so. It's important. Then the last thing we're going to do is, at this point, we should have a two-step equation. Okay? And we already know how to solve two-step equations. You work your PEMDAS backwards. You do sad meep. All right? So let's look at a couple of problems here. Letter A, 7n minus 1 minus 2n equals 14. All right? So just like before, anytime you have a variable and an equal sign, your goal is to get the variable by itself, and you do that by using inverse operations. So the first thing we're going to look for is there any distributive properties? Well, there are no parentheses, so there's no distributive property. All right, can we combine any like terms? Well, this 14 is by itself, okay, so it doesn't have anything to combine. But look over here on this side. We've got 7n minus 1 minus 2n. Well, if you recall from last week, that if something has the same variable raised to the same power, those are like terms. So we can combine this 7n and this negative 2n. But what about this poor little minus 1? Okay, well, it doesn't have anybody to combine with, so we just bring it down. So 7n minus 2n, all you got to do is combine the coefficients. 7 minus 2 is 5n. Bring down the minus 1, bring down the equal, bring down the 14. At this point, once you've combined your like terms, you should have a two-step equation. So we're going to start by undoing the constant. We're going to add 1 to both sides. Pew, pew. That leaves me with 5n equals 14 plus 1 is 15. Then we're going to undo the coefficient. We're going to divide both sides by 5. Okay, those cancel out. That leaves you n equals 3. And you can always go back and check your answer. Okay, real quickly over here, if we want to check our answer. Okay, what do? You rewrite the equation, right? So we started with 7n minus 1 minus 2n equals 14. And then we plug in what we think the answer is. We think the answer is 3. So 7 times 3 minus 1 minus 2 times 3. We want to know, does that equal 14? All right, you got to do your multiplication first. 7 times 3 is 21 minus 1 minus 2 times 3 is 6. Does that equal 14? 21 minus 1 is 20 minus 6. Does that equal 14? Well, 20 minus 6 is 14, which equals 14. So we did it right. This was our answer. The n minus 3 was correct. All right, that's the only one I'm going to show you again how to check, but you should be checking all of your answers to make sure that they're correct. All right, letter B says 63 equals 8w plus 2 6/10 minus 3 6/10. All right, is there any distributive property? No, there are no parentheses. Are there any like terms on one side or the other? Well, the 63 is by itself. But over here, is anything a like term with 8w? Does anything else have a w to the first power? No. All right, so there are no like terms. Remember that constants are like terms. So this positive 2 6/10 and this negative 3 6/10 need to be combined. All right, bring your 63 down. Bring your 8w down. All right, positive 2.6 minus 3.6 would give you negative 1. At this point, all that's left is a two-step equation. We're going to add 1 to both sides. 63 plus 1 is 64. Bring down the 8w. We're going to divide both sides by 8. Pew, pew. 64 divided by 8 is 8. 8w divided by 8 would just be w. Okay. Letter C, 12 minus 7b plus 10b equals 18. All right, find your wall, find your variable. All right, is there any distributive property? No, there are no parentheses, so there is no distributive property. All right, so like terms. The 18 again is over here by itself. We can't combine it with the 12 because they're on opposite sides. All right, so this 12 is by itself, but we've got a negative 7b, we've got a positive 10b. So we're going to bring the 12 down since it didn't have anything to go with. Negative 7b plus 10b, negative 7 plus 10 is positive 3b equals 18. All right, two-step equation. We got this. We'll subtract 12 from both sides. That leaves positive 3b, so you don't have to bring down the plus sign since it's positive. But if it was a minus 3b, we'd have to bring down the negative. 18 minus 12 is 6. We're going to divide both sides by 3, which leaves b equals 2. And at any point, if you want to look at a problem before I work it and pause the video and work it for yourself, you are welcome to do so. In fact, I encourage it. Okay, here are 3 more that do not involve the distributive property. After these 3, we'll start throwing that in. All right, letter D. 14 minus 8b plus 12b equals 62. All right, we should be getting the hang of this now. The 14, is there anything on this side that the 14 can combine with? No. All right, what about this negative 8b and this positive 12b? Can they go together? Yes. So bring down your 14. Negative 8b plus 12b would be positive 4b b. Bring down your 62. Okay, then your constant, we're going to subtract 14. Pew, pew. That leaves us with a positive 4b equals 62 minus 14 gives us 48. Then we're going to divide both sides by 4. Pew, pew. That leaves b equals 12. Got it? If you need to go back and watch that, if I went too fast, go back and watch it. All right, letter E. All right, we have a fraction bar with something to do on top. So what is understood to be up here? Parentheses. All right, so since we're saving parentheses for last, we need to undo this dividing by 6/10. So I need to multiply both sides by 6/10. All right, so that leaves us with the 6/10 cancel out. So that leaves us with 2b minus 3.4. All right, let me see if I can do this one in my head. A negative 29 times 6/10 is, if my memory serves me correctly, a negative 17 and 4/10. All right, no trickery involved. All right, now all we've got left is a two-step equation. So we're going to add 3 and 4/10 to both sides. Pew, pew. That leaves 2b equals a negative 14. Let me check that on my calculator. Even Mr. Brown doesn't know all the facts all the time. All right, it is a negative 14, so I did know it. Ha ha ha, I'm smart. All right, so last thing to do is we're going to divide both sides by 2. Pew, pew. That leaves us with b equals negative 7. All right, one more. Letter F, h minus 6 plus 7h equals 42. All right, so what of this over here is like terms? Well, we've got an h, we've got a positive 7h. Remember that if you just have a variable, there is an understood 1 in front of that variable. So what we need to do is basically 1h plus 7h gives you 8h minus 6 equals 42. Then all that's left is a two-step equation. We're going to add 6 to both sides. Pew, pew. That gives you 8h equals 48. Then we're going to divide both sides by 8 so that these will cancel out. That leaves us with h equals 6. Get it? Got it? Good. Now let's try a couple that include the distributive property. Remember, the distributive property comes first. Before you start combining like terms, you need to distribute what is outside the parentheses to everything inside the parentheses. Let's look and see what that looks like. Now we've got some problems with some parentheses. Remember, parentheses means that we need to distribute. So find your wall. All right, look over here. There's a 3 times the quantity z minus 1 into the quantity plus 8 equals 14. So remember when you're distributing that everything inside has to be multiplied by this thing outside. So 3 times z is 3z. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. The plus 8 was not in parentheses, so it just comes down, equals, and then bring down your 14. Now, after distributive property, you look for like terms. Does the 3z have anything over here it can combine with? It does not. But this negative 3 and this positive 8, those are both constants, and constants are like terms. Well, why can't we combine it with the 14? Because it's also a constant. Well, it's on the wrong side of the equal sign. So the 3z, poor little 3z, didn't have a date to the dance. But negative 3 plus 8 would be plus 5 equals 14. And now it's just a two-step equation. We undo the constant. That leaves 3z equals, excuse my phone, 14 minus 5 is 9. Then we divide both sides by 3. Cancels out. Z equals 9 divided by 3 is 3. Okay? Distributive property, combine like terms, solve the two-step equation. Sometimes when you distribute and do all that, all that's left is a one-step equation. All right? Then you're in luck. It's even less work. All right? Excuse me. We got 4 times the quantity t minus 8 plus 20 equals 5. So we're going to distribute this 4, which means everything inside needs to be multiplied by 4. 4 times t is 4t. 4 times a negative 8 is negative 32 plus 20 equals 5. All right, then it's like terms. There's nothing to combine with the 4t. It's by itself. But we've got a negative 32 and a plus 20. Constants are like terms. We got 4t. Negative 32 plus 20, same sign, add and keep, different sign, subtract, keep the sign of the larger number, and then you'll be exact. Should give you a negative 12. All right? Then we're going to undo the subtraction. We're going to add 12 to both sides. Pew, pew. That gives you 4t left. All right, and then 5 plus 12 is 17. Then we're going to divide both sides by 4, which leaves t equals 4 and 25 hundredths. Okay? Or 4 and 1/4, depending on if you want to leave it as a decimal or a fraction. Me, I like the decimals. Letter I. Here's the equal sign. We got 9 equals negative the quantity r minus 5 plus 11. All right, so what are we distributing here? We're distributing the negative. So what that's going to do is this r was positive. Well, when you distribute the negative, now it's negative. This is a negative 5. So when you distribute the negative, a negative minus a negative makes a positive. All right, so bring down your 9. So the r was positive, now it's negative. The 5 was negative, now it's positive. Okay, all you did was distribute that negative sign, which gives you the opposite of what's inside. All right, look for like terms. There's nothing to go with this negative r. There's a positive 5. There's a positive 11. Those could go together. All right, and you're going to need to listen very closely here. When you bring this down, this is negative r, and plus 5 plus 11 is positive 16, because there's going to be something here that we haven't experienced yet, or at least we haven't experienced in a while. We're going to subtract 16 from both sides. These cancel out. That gives me negative 7 equals negative r. All right, well, the variable appears to be by itself, but there's a negative with it. So we need to get rid of this negative. There are 2 ways to do that. You can multiply both sides by negative 1, or you can divide both sides by negative 1. Okay, when you do that, negative 7 divided by negative 1 is positive 7. Negative r divided by negative 1 is positive r. So you get 7 equals r. Right? 3 more that have the distributive property. All right, letter J says 3 times 6/10 plus 2n minus 3 2/10 equals 7 6/10. You guys, I'm letting you use calculators, so these decimals should not be intimidating. All right? What are we distributing here? We're multiplying everything inside here by a positive 3. All right? 3 times 6 is 18, so 3 times 6/10 would be 1 8/10. 3 times a positive 2n would be positive 6 n, 3 times 2 is 6. Bring down your minus 3 and 2/10 equals 7 and 6/10. All right, now we look for like terms. The 1 and 8/10 and the negative 3 and 2/10 are like terms. And then this positive 6n it doesn't have anything. All right, so let's bring down the positive 6n. And then 1 and 8/10 minus 3 and 2/10 is a negative 1 and 4/10 equals 7 and 6/10. We're going to add 1 and 4/10 to both sides. That leaves 6n equals, that'd be 8, 9. We're going to divide both sides by by 6. I'm thinking about the third that's about to be here. That would give us 1 and be 6, 9 minus 3 would be 3 divided by 6 would be 0.5. So 1 and 5/10. Okay. Uh-oh, now we got to deal with a fraction. Okay, we can do this. We can persevere. First thing we do is we distribute. Okay, bring down your 0 equals 9 times k would be 9k. 9 times a negative 2/3 would be negative something plus 33. Well, let's see what that something is. All right, let's see. We had 9 times a negative 2/3. So that'd be 9 over 1 times negative 2/3. The 9 and the 3 are both divisible by 3. That would leave 3 and 1. So that'd give me 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. 1 times 1 is 1. So that'd be negative 6. So back up here, we're going to plug in a minus 6. Okay? All right? Does 9k have any like terms over here? No. What about this negative 6 and this positive 33? They are like terms. So 0 equals 9k. That would give me positive 27. All right, then it's just a two-step equation. You should be home free when you hit this stage because this is what we talked about the last 2 days. Gives me negative 27 equals 9k. Divide both sides by 9. That leaves me with negative 3 equals k. Whoops. All right, one more. And then we're going to do some word problems. Yes. All right, here's my wall. There are parentheses, which means I need to distribute. So 6 times t. What is 6 times t? 6t. What's 6 times negative 2? Negative 12. Bring down your minus 76 equals negative 142. All right, then you look for like terms. 6t doesn't have anything, but negative 12 and negative 76 would combine. So that gives me 6t. Let's see, negative 12 minus 76 would be negative 88 equals negative 142 plus 88. Those cancel out. 6t equals, let's see, negative 142 plus 88 is a negative 54. And then last thing, divide both sides by 6. That gives you t equals a negative 9. Don't you feel smarter already? Good. Now it's time for some word problems. All right? We're going to be very systematic about our word problems and how we solve those. The first thing we want to do is read through the problem and find out what we're looking for. That's called defining the variable. You're going to pick a variable that you want to use, X, B, M, whatever that is, and you're going to tell what that variable represents. Then, once you know what your variable is, you're going to reread the problem and find where that variable belongs in the words of the problem. And from there, you can write your equation. Let me show you what that looks like. The last thing I want to do with you guys is 2 word problems. Jamal owns twice as many graphic novels as Levi owns. Adding 6 to the number of graphic novels that Jamal owns and then dividing by 7 gives you the number of graphic novels Brooke owns. Brooke owns 30 graphic novels. How many does Levi own? So we're looking for the number that Levi owns. So like we said, first thing we're going to do is define our variable. Let's say L. What does L equal? The number of graphic novels owned by, and who are we looking for? Levi. All right, then let's go back to the problem and let's figure out where that L goes. Jamal owns twice as many graphic novels as Levi owns. So if Levi owns L, how many does Jamal own? He owns 2L, twice as many as Levi. All right, adding 6 to the number of graphic novels Jamal owns. Well, isn't this Jamal? So adding 6 to that and then dividing by 7 gives you the number of graphic novels, equals the number of graphic novels that Brooke owns. Well, then it goes on to tell you that Brooke owns 30, so this equals 30. All right, and what we got here is a multi-step equation, okay? So, understood parentheses up here, so we're going to save that for last. So, first we want to undo this divided by 7. Let's multiply both sides by 7. Those cancel out. We get 2L plus 6 equals 30 times 7 is 210. All right, and then what do we have now? All that's left is a 2-step equation. We're going to undo the constant. Then we're going to undo the coefficient. All right, what was L? L was how many graphic novels Levi owns. So Levi owns 102 graphic novels. All right. Easy peasy. Let's look at my other one. All right, let's get you on the screen. There you go. John is twice as old as Helen. Subtracting 4 from John's age and then dividing by 2 gives you William's age. If William is 24, how old is Helen? So let's define our variable. We're looking for Helen's age. So H, you can use whatever variable you want. All right, I'm going to use a H. H is Helen's age. All right, and then let's go back through and look at where that H goes. John is twice as old as Helen. Helen is H, so how old is John? John is 2H. All right, subtracting 4 from John's age. Well, this is John's age. So subtracting 4 from that and then dividing by 2, it says, gives you William's age. So gives you equals William's age. If William is 24, how old is Helen? So if we want to know how old Helen is, all we got to do is solve for that H. All right, so, all right, there's something to do up here. So there are understood parentheses. So first thing we want to do is undo this divided by 2. So let's multiply both sides by 2. Okay, deal? We got 2H minus 4, because the times 2 divided by 2, those canceled out. Pew, pew. 24 times 2 is 48. Then all it is a two-step equation. We're almost home free. We're going to add 4 to both sides. Leaves me with 2h equals 52. Then we're going to divide both sides by 2. Pew, pew. So that gives me h equals 26. What was h? H was Helen's age. So how old is Helen? Helen is 26 years old. Got it. Well, hopefully you had a little bit of fun today, or if nothing else, at least you learned something. All right. Tomorrow is Thursday. We will have some review questions. I will also post the answers to those review questions just so that you can check your solutions to mine. Don't cheat. All right. So Friday, we will have our second minor grade. That will be on 1, 2, and multi-step equations. All right, it's very important that you get down 1, 2, and multi-step equations because next week we're going to move on to what happens when there are variables on both sides of the equal sign. We've had constants on both sides, but we've never had a variable on both sides. So we'll look at what to do for that. All right, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Mr. Brown's YouTube channel so that you know when we have a new lesson. Hit that bell so you get a notification about when a new video drops. All right, and most importantly, stay safe and don't do drugs.